the blank. You're not getting any younger, so
stop talking and start doing.
Hey you! Yes, you! Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Hey, any youngers, Jen Glantz here. How in the world are you doing? See, I probably have absolutely no idea because one of the things I've been obsessed with recently is cutting down the screen time on my phone. If you have an iPhone, or I don't know if you have an Android or anything else, but I know on the iPhone there is something in your settings where you can see how long every day that you use your phone. I will be totally transparent and say that there were some days in the beginning of the year where I was using my phone for like 6 or 7 hours. I don't even know how that's possible because the only thing I complain about these days is how I have no time for anything. And then I look at my screen time and there you go, Jen. Those are 6 or 7 extra hours every day where you could be, I don't know, doing something awesome. One of the things that I decided to do to help cut down my screen time is eliminate one of the apps that I'm on constantly for no reason except to just bullshit and look at other people's lives and compare myself and forget that a lot of what people are posting on this app isn't actually real. Yes, I'm talking about everybody's favorite Instagram. I've decided to delete Instagram completely off of my phone, and for the last 3 weeks, I've only gone on Instagram one time every Monday for less than a couple of minutes. So my overall Instagram use time for the week is 6 minutes. The second I deleted Instagram off my phone, it felt completely like that's the way life should be. I no longer had this urge to just tap on the app and sit there and scroll and spending hours a day on Instagram. I don't know, I think I'm doing other things, and that's not going on Facebook or Twitter. It's like being more productive or using that free time to talk to people. It has been a game changer in my mental health. I no longer feel so anxious. I no longer feel like I have to constantly be keeping up with people who I don't know in real life or be judged by people who send me nasty comments and DMs and things like that all day long. All of this sort of leads me to my story of the week, which is about one time when I was walking down 6th Avenue in New York City, completely pretending that I was invisible. My arms were flailing and my favorite song was playing inside of my ears, and I was probably late for something when all of a sudden this guy came up to me and said, "Excuse me." And he was attempting to catch my attention, but not in an intrusive or scary way, just sort of saying, "Hey, hello." I remember I kept walking. I pulled an earbud out, but I sort of gave him the body language cue that I was not interested in talking to him. And my heart was racing in the same way that any stranger makes you feel when you first meet them, especially when they catch you out of the blue. I feel like everyone you meet wants something: directions, assistance, comfort, spare change. So when you live in New York long enough, it's only natural that we zap ourselves inside of this locked, translucent door when we meet somebody new, and we're a little bit rude to them, especially if they surprise us with a hello or a question at 9:00 p.m. on the corner of 17th Street and 6th Avenue. I said to him, "What? What do you want?" And he said to me, "Can I tell you something?" We're conditioned early in our lives to turn our head and run in the opposite direction from strangers. But we forget that as we go through life and we get grown up, that a lot of times we completely write good people off because of that. I looked at him in his eyes and I said, "No." I was annoyed. I felt like he was wasting my time, so I let him know that I'm late for something and I have to go. In the last couple years, a lot of my good friends have moved out of New York City. One of my good friends is moving to San Diego in a month, and I was telling my Lyft driver this on a Sunday morning, and he said to me, Jen, this is just what happens. People come, people go, new people come. You just have to give other people a chance. And I thought to myself after I pushed the stranger away and I never found out what it is that person wanted to tell me, and it bugs me because oftentimes we are so closed off to the people around us. And if you listen to last week's episode with Kim Seltzer, you'll know that a huge part of welcoming new people into your life is just showing them that you are open to them with your body language, with how you react to them and how you talk to them when they talk to you first. And I know that telling this story, a lot of people are thinking you have to have your guard up, especially as a woman walking alone at night in New York City. And that is completely true. But this stranger wasn't harmful. This stranger just wanted to be my friend. They wanted someone to talk to. And a couple of years ago, I was sitting on a park bench in Madison Square Park, eating a salad, minding my own business. And this person came and sat next to me and they said, I have an experiment that I'm doing. I'm trying to talk to a brand new person every day for 30 days, and today is my final day. You are person number 30. And while at first, if you live in New York City long enough, that kind of thing could be so creepy to you, you would just completely freak out. But I started talking to the stranger. His name was Will, and I opened up about all of these crazy things happening in my life. This was maybe 5 years ago. For some reason, he had a similar experience with a lot of these things, and we completely bonded, and our friendship still lasts until today. He's one of the coolest, awesome entrepreneur friends that I have, who's invented a lot of amazing things that you probably even have heard of. And the only reason that I found him, he entered my life, is because he talked to me and I responded. When I could have had my headphones in, I could have just stuffed the salad in my mouth and pretended like I couldn't speak, but I talked to him. So fear strangers, sure. Be smart about who you talk to and who you don't, but try to make yourself more welcoming to those around you because you never know who you're going to meet. Right now, in the You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, in real time, the question was asked, what is something you're glad you failed at in your 20s? I ask you this, my friends, because I want to know what it is that you regret about your 20s that you failed at, because I'm curious if that triggered a lot of success now. And if you're still in your 20s, maybe you're only 22, that's fine. What do you think you failed at last year? People in the group are writing things like love. I failed so hard at love in my early 20s, but I'm happy I did. By the time I met my husband, I knew what I didn't want and went for the good stuff. Somebody else said that I failed at my first job. I got fired by a crap boss for a job I hated, and it was life-changing because I learned not to settle. I was humbled, and I learned how to believe in myself and bounce back. Somebody else, and I really love this one, is I'm glad I failed at finding a husband. Ask anyone close to me and their jaws would be on the floor even just reading that. But because of that, I've had the time to focus on myself so hard through extensive therapy and will eventually make a better, more mature, wiser, and not reactive person in a serious relationship. So come join us in the You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group and share with us what you think you failed at in your 20s. Perhaps other people can relate, and other people in the group who have lived past these failures can prove to you that there is success just around the corner. On today's podcast, we have someone super special. Her name is Danielle Levin, and she started an outreach organization called Faces in Between. Faces in Between is a year-round homeless support and outreach org that provides day-to-day essentials to our homeless neighbors and a platform for empowerment, and ensures our homeless neighbors have a voice. Homelessness was not something Danielle was always interested in, and she never thought that she could run her own company at the age of 24, but it all happened so fast, and she is on the show today to talk about what it was like to start this organization and why in 2019 something like this desperately has to exist. I am so excited for you to hear Danielle's words. And if you like the show, you have any kind of good feelings toward it, if you could, pretty please just drop us a quick iTunes review. That would mean the absolute world. Thank you again, my friends. It's always so great having you listen to this show. I was out somewhere the other day and I overheard a woman say that she judges how homeless a person is based on the kind of shoes they're wearing. If they have Nikes on, they are probably faking being homeless for money. And okay, I heard this and I wanted to scream. I'm sure that you, in your experience, have heard things like this, but I want to talk to you first about some of the stigmas surrounding homelessness.
Absolutely. So I totally feel your frustration. And as you said that, my heart really started to pound and I felt it too. So, just to start, and one thing I always like to tell people is there is no one face of homelessness. So, there's a wide range. Everyone has a different experience, just like you and I have different experiences in our own lives. And so, it's really not up to us to judge based on how somebody looks, if they fit a certain part or a certain role. And there's so many children in our school system who are homeless. And by the look of it, you would never know that they're homeless. They, just like every other student, have a backpack and their uniform on or their jeans on. And, by trying to create one image of who someone is, we're essentially neglecting majority of the population.
It's so true, and it's really sad because, you can look at anybody in the eyes and you truly have no idea what they're going through. Like, do you see homeless people who are dressed in clothing and have shoes and walk around like they would be anybody else, but truly they're living on the street or they don't have a place to go back to? Do you see that kind of thing too?
I see that all the time, and there's so many people that are experiencing homelessness who also have jobs and have really impressive jobs too. And so it's really not up to us, like I said, to judge anyone for their experiences, what they're going through, and how their story is different than ours. And by doing that, we end up creating this disconnect between human beings, and people feel it. People understand when you're looking at them differently. When you walk past someone and try to avoid eye contact with them because you think that your life story is maybe better or different, or you're afraid of the unknown, people pick up on that. And so because we don't know, we live in big cities, and we don't know who the person sitting next to us on the subway is. We have no authority to try to make assumptions about them. And we need to really treat every single person that we interact with the same respect that we would treat our family members or best friends with.
Oh, amen to that. So I think it could be important for maybe you to sort of define what homelessness is, because I do think that a lot of people listening might be like, oh, well, it's just a person who doesn't have a home, but there's more to that. So maybe you can just start off by sort of explaining what it means to be homeless.
Definitely. So homelessness is a very broad term and is defined differently by many different organizations, but a common theme is basically people who are lacking a permanent and stable housing situation. So that could mean sleeping in shelters, that could mean doubling up with friends or relatives, that could mean sleeping in a car. And homelessness takes a lot of different forms, but the overall theme is really just not having a place that's a stable home to return to.
I want to talk a lot about you. You run a homeless organization, outreach organization called Faces in Between. You're in your 20s and you're a full-time student, right?
Yeah, so Faces in Between is a homeless outreach organization, as you mentioned, that's really dedicated to bringing visibility to an often invisible and vulnerable population. We're specifically focused currently in New York City, and we run a lot of different community engagement events. We advocate with the community, not for the community, because we really believe that it's not up to us to tell someone else's story, but it's up to us to build relationships and provide a platform so the individuals who are experiencing homelessness themselves can get their story out and have their voice heard within the world. And so we do this in a lot of different ways. We do this on Instagram. We feature different community members and share parts of their story. We bring community members in to speak at events about what it's like to be experiencing homelessness. And we throw kind of different events so that we can just get people talking about it. Because the idea is if we can start changing everyone's perspective, we can see a shift in how we interact with everyone in our own city. And hopefully, in the long run, we'll be able to erase the stigma. And eventually, in the long term, Faces in Between is hoping to implement programs and guide policy to really reduce the amount of homelessness that exists in major cities across the country.
One of the things I love about what you do is how you want to build connections between neighbors, meaning those that have homes and those that are homeless. So I know that a lot of people, like you said earlier, they'll walk by someone who's homeless and maybe avoid eye contact with them or maybe just completely stare at them with a certain look on their face. What are some of the things that people can do when they are in a community, when they are walking down the street and they see somebody who is homeless?
Right. So all I say is, at the very least, all you need to do is give a smile and wish someone a good day. When you're in a rush, you don't have to stop. You don't have to be late to that meeting to make an impact on somebody's day. People want to be seen. People want to know that they're not invisible. And so by just saying, as you're walking to the subway, running to your car, whatever it may be, hi, I hope you have a good day, or good morning, that's one step. The other thing is, and we do a lot of this, is we provide our non-homeless community members with different items to distribute. So that may mean a chapstick or a pair of socks, a pair of gloves. Throw that in your bag, and on your way to or from work, stop and ask a community member, hey, I have this pair of socks. Would you like it? That not only opens up a conversation for you to then kind of get to know your neighbor, but also you're able to support them and meet their needs. And socks, underwear, these are all some of the most important and essential but under-donated items for our homeless community members. And it doesn't weigh your bag down at all. So it makes it incredibly easy to really just stop and connect. But at the very least, I think just acknowledging someone's existence is the best place to start.
One of the things I want to talk about when it comes to that is a lot of people will say, well, I don't look at homeless people because all they want is money, and then they're going to use that money for drugs and alcohol, and I'm not going to fund that. And hearing something like that breaks my heart personally, because addiction is something very close to me, and I find that we can't, A, assume everyone homeless is an addict, and B, even if they are, it's such a more complicated thing than just to say we can't give them money because it fuels their addiction. It's just way more complicated to that. So is there anything that you can say to people who are like, I don't want to even make eye contact with them because all they do is ask me for money?
Absolutely. And just to backtrack a bit on the money situation. So I understand at times where people could be coming from. However, money isn't always used for what we think it is. And just from a female perspective, a woman who's experiencing homelessness needs essentially $1.10 to be able to use a bathroom. And without that, she is forced to either have to go on the street in public and either in her pants or get undressed publicly. So by having $1.10, just because you think someone might be using it to go buy drugs or do something that you don't approve of, doesn't mean that that's what they need it for. Sometimes it's really, really, really for survival. And imagine experiencing menstruation on the streets. If you don't have access to a clean bathroom, what are you supposed to do? And so it's really, like I said in the beginning, it's not up to us to judge how people live their lives, just like people aren't judging us as we go about our lives from day to day. But I also think that, just to go back to your question, without giving money, I really believe, and this is directly coming from community members themselves, that sometimes just a simple conversation and treating someone else like they're a human being does way more than money could ever do. So another idea which I heard recently, which really warmed my heart, is one of my friends who's currently experiencing homelessness said that a girl walked up to him with her dog and said, I don't have any money on me, but would you like to pet my dog? And it made his entire week.
I just got the chills hearing that, because that human connection is so powerful for anybody who is struggling, and especially in situations like this. I really just think a lot of people just write that off as something that they're too scared to do, or that they just don't feel like doing when they're on the way to the subway or rushing to get from point A to point B.
Absolutely. And I do think, fear holds all of us back. It holds us back from reaching that next level in our career, from reaching out to that friend that we haven't talked to in a while, or from getting involved with an organization because we're not sure where to start. And my advice would be just don't be so shy. Read the room, know what you're getting yourself into. If something seems like it's a threatening situation, maybe skip out on that. But it's important that we push ourselves and face our fears at times because we don't know what's going to be on the other side. And oftentimes, even more than we'll be able to impact the individual, we'll receive such an amazing impact on ourselves just from the learning experience, from the connection that we'll have with someone that we never thought that we could have connected with.
I think people also think that, homelessness is something that can never happen to them, that they're sort of immune from it. But do you have any information on how truly, anybody can be homeless, and a lot of people are maybe one paycheck, 1 week at work away from being homeless?
Absolutely. And majority of the people, especially in New York City, are living one paycheck away from it. And I think that's part of what creates the stigma is people are afraid to really acknowledge the homeless community members because they know that that could be them. And I think that it's a little bit of a fear. I've discussed this in length with some of the community members themselves, and they really believe that it's not because people are just always afraid of them, but sometimes it's really because people are afraid of what could be of themselves.
It's so true. And I think that's exactly the reason that stops people from doing a lot of things, is that they have the fear that that can be them. And I think that's such a cowardly way of living sometimes too. We have to really look at ourselves in the mirror and think, what is holding us back? What is scaring us so much? And usually those are things that we're creating in our head. They're not even reality.
Right. And at the end of the day, I really believe that we all have a certain power within us, and we can use it for good or we can let it go to waste. And by allowing our fears of maybe our own realities or a situation we're close to, or just thinking that we're so far from it, so it's not our problem, we're allowing this power to go to waste. We have the power every day to impact someone's day in a positive way, to share a smile, to share a story, to help someone out. But when we don't use it, we're just letting this amazing power that we all have vanish. And if we each did something every single day to better the lives of somebody else, we would see such widespread change and smiles and happiness and friendliness across the city. And I really believe that a group of people has the power to create that ripple effect and end up within the next few years seeing a change.
I'm literally sitting here writing down everything you're saying because I want to make sticky notes and put it on my computer because it's just so important. Someone told me recently, try to be the best part of someone else's day. And I think that that's such a powerful thing to aim for. And it's exactly what you're saying too, is that we all have so much inside of us that we can give, and we have to rise to the occasion and do it. And this is what I want to talk about with you. You're 24, and you said that homelessness was something that you didn't know you were interested in, and you didn't even know you'd be running your own company. So let's go back to the start of that, Danielle. How did this happen? How did you start this organization? What got you into this?
Yeah, so I actually had always been interested in homelessness, and I knew I always wanted to enter into the field and work with this vulnerable population in some form. So that took shape in a lot of different ways. In college, I ran some philanthropy events that supported the homeless community in the town I was in school at, and then moved to New York City after graduating, worked at a healthcare strategy firm for a few years, and then went on to graduate school where I'm getting my master's in public health. And my goal was to somehow enter into the field of addressing homelessness when I graduated. But pretty much right when I received my acceptance, I ended up taking over this homeless outreach organization. And so it happened in a really incredible way. At the time when I was graduating undergrad, was working for an academic institution producing some research and needed a volunteer. For some weird reason, I went on Craigslist and looked up where to find a volunteer. I have no idea what possessed me to do that. And while I was on there, I found a woman post about some homeless outreach organization that she was going to start in New York City. Immediately, I kind of dropped everything I was doing, reached out to her, told her I would be moving to New York in 2 weeks, and I wanted to know if there was any room for me to become involved. Of course, she wrote back. This organization ended up becoming Faces in Between. And so my amazing mentor, Kendra, she created a website. She applied for 501c3 status and developed the mission. And she was incredibly busy. She worked at the psychiatric ER up at Columbia Medical Center. And a year ago to date, we got on a call and she informed me that she was going to shut down Faces in Between. At this point, all of her big dreams hadn't had the opportunity to really be put into action. It was a lot of backhand planning. And so I said to her, well, hold on. If this is going to stop now and this is going to end now, what if you gave me a chance and it either fails today or it fails with me, but let's just see what I can do. And when we got on the phone that day, I had no intention of becoming the president of an organization. I didn't know what it meant. I have no business background, but I knew that I stood behind the mission so strongly that I couldn't watch this end. And so she said, sure. And I said, under the condition that you'll remain as my mentor. And so to this date, she's an incredible mentor, and we restructured the organization. I essentially created a year at a glance without having a year to even base that off of, and have gained a lot of support, and there's a lot of growth coming. So it's been an incredible learning experience. And what I would say is the one piece of advice that really pushed me and kind of lit that fire under my butt is I met with someone in the fall and they said to me, stop talking about all these plans, start doing something. And the next day I planned my first campaign.
Wow, Danielle, I'm sitting here in awe of you. I think that you are amazing. You have such power and wisdom within you to do all of this. And I know that it must not have been easy. I know you must have had so many struggles along the way. What kept you going and what keeps you going?
It's the community members, the relationships that I've developed with the homeless community members that we work with keep me going every single day. And to the point where people don't know who I'm talking about. I'll be like, oh yeah, my friend Chad, my friend Melissa. People are like, wait, is this your friend from school? Is this your friend that's experiencing homelessness? And the relationships that I've developed with them and the need that they've expressed for an organization like this is really what keeps me going when things get tough, and they do. Being a full-time student and all of a sudden taking over responsibility of an entire organization that nothing's going to happen if it's not you doing it, there's pressure. And while also trying to maintain my life as a 24-year-old living in New York City. But I really believe that the community members themselves appreciate the work we're doing and express the importance of it. And it's the small messages that I get from them. The other week, I received a message from someone saying, thank you for making me feel human again. And it's moments like that that you can never look back or question, is this actually working? Because if it made one person feel human again, then it's all worth it.
Wow. I think this is such an incredible story, and I think that you are an incredible person. Where can our listeners find out more about you, support Faces in Between, get involved, tell them where they can go?
Absolutely. So check us out on Instagram at facesinbetween_. We post all sorts of updates about events, words and stories from community members, and different ways for you to get involved. If you're not in New York City or this isn't really your thing, my advice is really just don't be shy. If there's something you're interested in getting involved in, go for it. Nobody's going to wonder why. Even if you think you don't have the time, I promise it will add so much value into your life that you'll never look back. You'll become a better partner, a better friend, a better child, a better parent. If you're giving out love, you'll receive more. And so just don't wait to get involved. If there's something you're interested, go for it. And the worst thing that happens is you realize that you can't handle it all and you step back. But I gave it a shot, and I figured If it fails, it fails, but it didn't. And so I think that it's just really important that if you want to get involved with us, please do. We are always looking for volunteers and different people to just get involved and inspire. But if this isn't for you, definitely take advantage of any opportunity that is of interest.
Okay, the second that I move back and come back to New York, I want to be a volunteer and help you in any way that I can. I'm sold. I love this. I want to end the interview like I end them all, so I'm going to ask you to fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so
stop talking and start doing.
I love it. Danielle, thank you so much. I appreciate all of your wisdom and all of this information that you've given us. Thank you for being on our show today. Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.